Hello and welcome to the Welsh Rugby Roundup show. If you're watching here on Facebook, be sure to leave a like on the page and follow our page. If you're watching here on YouTube on Brandon Smith Rugby, make sure to subscribe. And tomorrow evening, on the first day of 2021, let's hope it's a bit better than 2020, it is the Welsh Derbies. We've had a set before on Boxing Day, but now we have our next set with the Scarlets taking on the Dragons and then Cardiff Blues hosting the Ospreys later on in the day. This is going to be a preview of both games. We're going to look at both teams, team selections. We're going to talk about the key players and who needs to get the ball in hand as much as possible. And also, we're going to have a chat about my predictions. And of course, I want to hear your predictions, so put them in the comments down below. Let's get started. So let's start with the first game of the evening, which will be the Scarlets. The Scarlets will be hosting the Dragons down at Padca. Scarlets kickoff at 5:15 for this one. Last weekend, we saw the Scarlets beating the Ospreys 16 points to 14 with Angus O'Brien getting the winning try. And I think overall, they just about deserved to win that one. It wasn't a spectacular game, really. And yeah, it wasn't the best game. The conditions certainly didn't help it, and we hope to see a more attractive game coming tomorrow evening. The Dragons, on the other hand, lost at home against Cardiff Blues in possibly one of the worst games I've watched in a very long time. Again, the conditions weren't great. From a Dragons perspective, I think they'd be frustrated that they didn't come away with something from that game, considering that they dominated so much for that first half. And it blew my mind that the ref didn't send someone to the bin from the Blues, considering the amount of penalties they gave away. But the Blues were resilient. They got the job done. And I don't know if they deserved to win, but they got the win. And that was the biggest thing for them. But for Dragons, very frustrating that they couldn't really capitalise on all the possession and all the territory and the amount of penalties that Cardiff conceded. They would have been frustrated to lose that game. But this game is going to be an interesting one. Of course, going into this one, you'd have to say the Scarlets are the favourites, and we'll take a look at their team in just a second. But the Dragons have improved under Dean Ryan. There's no doubt about that. And yet they still seem to be that little bit off the rest of the regions, just a little bit, but pushing teams, that's for sure. Let's take a look at the Scarlet side. It should come up on the screen for you now for you to have a look as well. Let's go through them, starting with the backs then. We have Angus O'Brien playing at 15 with Tom Pridey and Steph Evans as the wingers. Tyler Morgan and Steph Hughes are the centres, with Steph Hughes captaining the side. A half-back pairing then of Dan Jones and Kieran Hardy. Then if we take a look at the front row is Wyn Jones, Ryan Elias, Javan Sebastian. Then we have a lock pairing of Jake Ball and Sam Lucy. Of course, Jake Ball announced this week that he will be leaving the Scarlets and Wales at the end of the current campaign to go and live with his family out in Australia. Then we have Blade Thompson, Dan Davis and Sione Kalamafoni at 8, leaving a bench of Mark Jones, Phil Price, Peter Schultz, Tavita Ratuva, Ed Kennedy, Gareth Davis, Sam Costello and Paul Asquith. So it looks like quite a strong side from the Scarlets, and certainly they've got the players in the backs to be able to have a real impact on the game. And it's going to be key for them that they do get the ball to the likes of Steph Hughes, Steph Evans. Give them the ball, give them the opportunity to run with the ball. That is something, of course, the conditions were appalling last weekend. But hopefully this weekend we'll see a little bit more running rugby and we'll see these great players get the ball in hand. That's what we want to see. We don't want to see players going through the phases. The team gives a penalty away and they kick the points and the same thing happens time and time again. We want to see the best players with the ball in hand. Let's take a look at the Dragons team then. The Dragons line up like this for the game on Friday night. So starting with the backs, again, we have Jonah Holmes with Owen Jenkins and Ashton Hewitt playing on the wings, with Jack Dixon and Nick Tompkins playing at centre. Half-back pairing then of Tavis Noyle and Josh Lewis, with then the forwards go like this. Aaron Wainwright at 8 with Tame Basham at 7. We then got Harrison Keedy at number 6 as the captain. Matthew Screech and Ben Carter are the locks, with Leon Brown, Elliot Dee and Brock Harris completing the front row. So you look at that team and there are some big ball carriers in that side, but there's also a lot of experience. And with the likes of Nick Tompkins coming back in, you'd like to see him having the ball in hand. What I really felt about the Dragons against Cardiff was they just couldn't get the key players on the ball. I don't think Ashton Hewitt really touched the ball that much. Jamie Roberts was coming in on that line, which he so often does, and gets over the gain line. But there really wasn't that one pass out wide, which would enable them to get the try. And I know we've spoken about a lot, the conditions weren't great, but they just couldn't get the ball to the main men. And that is something that they'll certainly need to do. Good to see Leon Brown coming back in. And then the likes of Brock Harris obviously offer a heck of a lot of experience. So as I said, Scarlets go into this one as favourites, and I am going to back Scarlets to get a win here. It really depends how this game starts. If Dragons can start well and capitalise on their early dominance, then we could see something interesting happening. But I just think Scarlets will have a little bit too much here. I'm going to say Scarlets by 1 score to maybe 2 scores. I don't think it'll be a thrashing or anything like that. And to be honest, I don't expect that many points to be in this game. So I'm going to say 21-14 to the Scarlets. Let's move on then to talk about Cardiff Blues against the Ospreys. Interesting talk about this one with the game being held at the Cardiff City Stadium. This is kickoff at 25 to 8, so it'll be cold, it'll be dark. Hopefully the conditions will be okay for this one. Last tomorrow, of course, Blues beat the Dragons while the Ospreys lost against the Scarlets, 14 points to 16. The Blues welcome back a host of names, including Thomas Williams, who comes back in over Lloyd Williams. An interesting debate. I want to hear your thoughts on this one in the comments down below about the scrum half position for Wales. I feel that position is very much up for grabs. So looking at this team then, we'll go from the backs once again. We have Amos at fullback with Josh Adams on the wing with Summerhill. Then we have a centre partnership then of Smith and Ray Lilo with Jason Tovey, very experienced fly half, with Thomas Williams, as we have alluded to already. Then looking at the backs, we have Josh Turnbull as captain at 8 with Botham and Lewis Hughes. Then we have Thornton and Seb Davis. And then in the front row, then we have Rhys Carey, Christian Dacey, and Arhib. Leaving the bench then, Willis Halaholo, Luke Scully, Lloyd Williams, Alan Lawrence, James Ratty, Kieran Asirati, Corey Damagowski, and Liam Belcher. I hope I pronounced them all right. But that looks like a decent squad to me. A lot of experience in that team, that's for sure. And hopefully, once again, the likes of Josh Adams and Amos need to get ball in hand. Thomas Williams is a good sniping scrum half, although I think Lloyd Williams gets the ball out a lot quicker. But if he can snipe around the edges, it'd be really interesting to see how he can do. Then moving on to the Ospreys, then the Ospreys name. Again, a very strong team. It's a very strong side. I'm really excited to see how some of these players go. So looking at the fullback and moving through the rest of the backs, it's Dan Evans at fullback with George North and Luke Morgan on the wings. George North, what's going on with him? We want to see him confident and really having a go and having a freedom to play. Scott Williams then alongside Kieran Williams, who has been sensational, like a small Scott Gibbs in a way, the way that he plays. Stephen Myler, extremely experienced alongside Rhys Webb at 9. Looking then at the forward, so Sam Cross then is at 8 alongside Justin Tippick, who's captain with Dan Lydiard. Adam Beard and Davis then are the lock pairing with Jones, Phillips and Fear as the front row, leaving Scott Otten, Smith, Bottier, Ashley Griffiths, Ruben Morgan-Williams, who was impressive last week, Thomas Wheeler and Matt Prothero on the bench. So looking at that team, of course, the likes of Myler and Webb will look to control the game from the halfbacks. Being so experienced that they are, they will certainly look to do that. And you'd expect them to do that pretty well. Once again, though, the issue is the players who really should be shining have not been doing that recently. Luke Morgan's been very much in the cold. George North as well. I don't know what's going on, but Kieran Williams, if you can give him the ball, he has the ability to break the line, to have a wonderful step on him. And I'm really excited to see how he goes. And he could be one to watch in 2021 on the international scene with the likes of Jonathan Davis having reoccurring injuries. Maybe he's an option. And if someone else gets injured and Nick Tompkins gets injured or someone like that, he is certainly an option rather than putting George North at the centre. I think it makes more sense to put Kieran Williams at the centre for Wales. But focusing on this game is going to be an interesting one. I think both teams are pretty equal in terms of ability. And I think Ospreys will feel last week the game was there to be won against the Scarlets. Neither team really performed all that too well. Cardiff will come into this one confident after beating Dragons, but you think that if they play the same way they did in that first 20 minutes or so against the Dragons, the Ospreys would certainly take advantage of that, and maybe the ref wouldn't be so lenient in this game. So for this one, I am going to back the Ospreys, not just because I'm an Ospreys fan, but I am going to back the Ospreys to win this. I think this one is going to be a very close one, actually. I think this is going to be a penalty or a try between both sides. So I'm going to back the Ospreys to win this one. I'm going to say 15 points to 12. I don't expect it to be a good game. I think that, yeah, it's going to be late at night. It's going to be cold. I don't think there's going to be much eagerness from the forwards to throw the ball about at all. I think they're going to keep it very close to each other and go through the phases. I think that's the type of game we are going for in this one. But I am going to back the Ospreys to win this one. But as always, I want to hear your thoughts. Who are you backing to win these? Who are the key players in these games? What are going to be the deciding factors? Let me know down in the comments down below. If you're watching on Facebook, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also to follow here on Facebook. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, to subscribe as well. Make sure to follow our socials, all linked down below. We're really excited for 2021. Lots of plans here at the Welsh Rugby Roundup show, so we want you to come along with us. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon. Have a wonderful new year. Peace.